I welcome you with all my heart. I love you all, my spiritual family. Robert used to begin satsang almost every time by saying, "You don't exist. You are not real. The world is not real. Pay no attention to it." Everybody would laugh because they knew that they existed, and Robert was telling a secret joke because it was none of their experience. Now, Robert had an enlightenment experience at age 14, which everybody knows about. But I think the real birth of his spirituality occurred when he was 11. And he saw his aunt killing a chicken by breaking its neck and cutting the head off. And the chicken ran around in the yard for a few minutes until it keeled over and died. Robert said that was the most shocking thing he had ever known. He didn't know that such horror could exist in the world, that such cruelty could exist, that killing like that could exist. And he struggled with this. How could this be? How could this be? How could this be? He says it troubled him endlessly, and he couldn't come up with a solution until about a year later, when he found a solution. Was this horror just could not be. The world does not exist. And 2 years later, after making that declaration to himself, or that discovery to himself on moral grounds, he had an awakening experience. To his own self as Brahman, or as I call it, the life force. I had a similar experience when I was 14. I was lying on a hammock in my backyard when this man walked in to the backyard, dressed in black with a reverse collar, carrying a briefcase. I knew immediately my father had died. He went into the house, and I was covered with fear of actually knowing that my father was dead. Then I heard my mother scream and then cry, and I knew it was true. I was just stunned. Thereafter, for 6 months or so, I'd wake up in the morning on the bottom bunk bed, my brother was on top, or vice versa. And I'd feel wonderful. I'd feel happy, peaceful, and then thoughts would come, and I would remember my father was dead. And I entered a world of a nightmare where my father was dead. I remember our dog Pepper. Every day thereafter, Pepper would be by the door waiting for my father to come home. Anytime anybody got close to the door, he'd start wagging his tail. And there was no father to appear. This rocked me so much, it broke my heart, it teared me apart. I couldn't understand the reality that was like this, where somebody so important to you can be there one moment and then disappear forever. So, Robert also used to say, the world can't exist. And if it does, he said, it was the lowest of all hells. It was a world where animals ate animals. People ate animals. People committed crimes. They murdered people. They robbed. They stole. They burned things down. They raped. They pillaged. They killed each other in war. How could this be real? So in what sense did Robert mean that you are not real? The world is not real. He meant it that everybody that was coming to satsang, including me at the time, created the world with our thinking. I had a name, my brother had a name, my mother had a name, my father had a name. Dog had a name. Dog had certain behaviors, mother had certain behaviors, I had certain behaviors. We believed the house was real, whatever that was. We never saw the house outside of mind. You grow up with concepts and they become real. The city of Cleveland becomes a reality, even though there is no such thing as Cleveland that can be pointed to. I can point to a house, a building, a railroad, but I couldn't point to all of Cleveland. But I come from Cleveland, which is a concept. It's a concept of a city, of a certain size, certain demographics, certain industry, certain state of mind, certain universities. And it would take a list, a dozen terms long, to really define Cleveland from other cities. Our realities are made up of maps, representations of reality, so that we can talk to each other about something other than what's in our common vision at the time. That's a chair. That's a cat carrier. That's a door. That's a light. But how do you talk about the light 8,000 miles away in somebody else's bedroom? Except by imagination or by watching them on Skype or Messenger. We have a concept that we are a body. And we live that way. When in fact, Ramana's awakening experience was that spirit was something quite different from the physical body. And he thought that the spirit was immortal and didn't die. Nisargadatta disagrees with him and says the spirit dies even before the physical body dies. It's not real either. The only reality is the nothingness out of which both arose at the beginning of a day and sets into at the end of a day. But we live in this world of space-time filled with concepts and judgments and moralities and laws and norms. And we abide by those laws. We take them as our limits. We live by the rules. But one day, if you're lucky, you have a time when your mind is completely empty. Even your visual space disappears. That sense of self that most of us have in the heart or gut area, like an energy field that we take as I am, that too instantly dissipates. And all that there is emptiness. There's no longer any concepts. There's no longer any I, any you, any external world, because once the concept of I disappears, everything else is seen to be equally empty and meaningless. So the external world doesn't exist. Now, you continue to have experiences, but you know that the division of your experience into me and the world is bogus. It's illusion. All words are illusory. All words are constructs. Cleveland, Arizona, Peoria, Bogota, South America, North America, Hitler, Bush, Trump. They're all illusions, just words. You really have to have the experience before you know what I'm talking about. That all words lose their meaning, and that words really don't point to anything. It's just a map, a very generalized map that we use to talk to each other. And most of the time it works out for day-to-day transactions. But in the end, it's not real. You can see that concepts are floating around your head, all around you in space. And some concepts come to you and enter your mind, and they become real in your mind. Now, there are those I call the awakeners. They can literally look at the world and see how their mind is making up that world and supporting it. Somebody like Angela. Somebody like Veselina. When you talk to other people, you're aware of their words and the effect it has on your own world, on your own experience, on your experience of emotions, on your experience of energies. You become awakened to the creative process of your mind, which allows you to function in the world according to the rules that you've learned to live by, rules of physics, chemistry, social politeness, social laws, common convention within a corporation, the implied rules wherever you are. And they awaken to them, to limits imposed by these ideas that we all hold so true and dear. And then something happens. When you can see how other people can shape your experience when they talk to you through the use of words and symbols, intonation, speech patterns, rapidity or slowness of speech, the tone. All of these create an image inside of you. And if you're in tune with me, I can create an experience of energies in you, of Shakti. I do it differently with different people, depending on my mood and what I feel. Then the next stage, I would call the world of the spellbinders, who learn how to create stories and symbols, maybe rituals, to control their own feelings, to enlarge the energy in them, to feel Shakti more fully, or to give an experience of Shakti to somebody else through Shaktipat. I look at you when I talk to you. I feel your presence. I feel sort of like you feel. And then I start talking about my experience, whether it's true or not. And this begins to shape your experience, especially if it's something new, like Shakti. It's harder to tell somebody that a red shade is really black when they're very convinced that a red shade is the color red and they know what red is. But if they don't know Shakti that well, it's really easy to shape the experience of Shakti in another person, to have it grow larger, to diminish, to shift to the different parts of the body, to imagine different things like chakras, or energy tubes, or energy going up and down the spine, or descending from above. So these people, they've already seen through the mind and how the mind creates the reality around them. And there's a deeper intelligence in each of us. It's a body intelligence, not in the mind, not in the head. The real witness is independent of the head. It's not the eyes. It's a sense of being which is spread throughout the body. And this being in us, this intelligence within us, says, hey, the world that most people live in is totally made up of concepts. My own world is too, but I see through it. And I can use different concepts talking to myself or no concepts whatsoever and see a world unshaped by concepts. And the spellbinder can see a more real world, without concepts, and tell stories or use symbols or rituals to create a different experience for you. And sometimes they act like, what do they call that? Exorcists, exorcising concepts or entities out of you. They get rid of it out of your mind, out of your reality, and you're free of it, of them. Perhaps you have a pain in your heart. They can enter your body, into your sense of presence, feel it for what it is. And then they may say, this is how I experience what you're experiencing. Are you sure it's a pain? Check again. And the person will look again, and it will have changed. It may no longer be in the heart, it may be in the stomach or in the shoulders. And it's not pain anymore, it's just energies. Thus, we learn magic. We learn how to change things, not even with the mind, but with the intentionality of that deeper part of us that observes everything. And is not attached to the mind, but can use the mind to create symbols and stories and intentions, such as to change the world. I highly recommend that everybody see the movie King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. You have to see it about 5 or 6 times. The whole movie is about magic, intentionality, power, and just seeing it and feeling the movie can awaken the magician within you. The part that is separate from this mundane world and enters a divine world, a world of bliss, a world where you know that you're the Son of God, that you're incarnated, that you're God incarnate, where you feel your beingness all the time as joy and happiness and as life, and where you can witness the life force within you as a kind of entity, formed or formless, and have a dialogue with it. Become friends with God. You can speak with God, so to speak, and feel his love. For your vision of him arose in you. And God appreciates that and will show himself to you for you to love and for him to love you. I'm going to talk about my inner state for a few minutes. Feel how your own inner state may change as I describe mine to get a feel of what I'm talking about. While I sit here, I'd say I'm 90% relaxed. My arms are resting on the chair here, and my hands are crackling with energy, almost burning with energy. And I don't know which way the energy is going, into my hands, from my shoulders, or into my hands and going into my shoulders. The direction of energy is not evident. I'm sitting with my back against the chair. I can feel my skin on the chair, my butt on the chair, the pressure of it. My calves resting against the bottom of the chair. I'm in complete peace. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. I've got Max here to do the gardening, to feed the cats, to scoop the litter. I'm living the life of Riley now. No stress. Now I feel the energies in my calf, in my thighs, my butt, my gut, my heart, into my mouth, throat, and into my brain. They're not as particularly moving, but the energies are very dense. Like I've got 500,000 volts of power locked in the capacitor inside of me, just wanting to get out and move into the world. A capacitor is that thing that can soak up an electric charge and discharge it in a lightning bolt when it's grounded. And that's how I feel. If I were grounded, I could move the world because I have so much power. And yet at the same time, when I look inside of myself, there's nothing but a dark emptiness. And my feeling self, how I feel my body, overlaps with this internal visual field of darkness. And yet even this darkness is illuminated by a low-powered light that is everywhere. And I can look into that darkness within and see that there's nothing there. It's completely empty. Wherever I look is emptiness, within and around. And somehow this body is talking, but the brain is not engaged. I have no idea what is engaged. It could be some entity for all I know, because it doesn't feel like me. Now I feel energies at the back of my neck, very strongly going up into my brain. I feel heavier now, more dense with energy. I feel like a pressure cooker that's up to 25 pounds of pressure and is about to burst. And the feeling is so delightful to have all this power ready to do something. And all that I can do is feel the power of the Shakti within. I don't have to do anything with it. But I'll give it to you, to each and every one to feel. Vijay to feel it, to feel the power within. Michael T, Tonita, Angela, Ken, Padma, everybody. Feel the power of the Shakti within. Feel the life force within you. Feel the joy of having so much energy, boundless energy, that can shape the world in so many different ways, just by an act of will. At first, it doesn't know how. You have to learn. You have to learn how to enter another person's body and adjust things there. Or to travel by astral projection, imaginatively or really, and to, from that point, see a different part of the world, different part of the house even. Remote seeing, remote doing. It may go to your head and you think you have more power than you really do have. You may try to change category 5 hurricanes into category 1. But you can't do that alone. You're not a wizard yet. Even the wizards can't do it. But you can make little changes in your environment just by how you address other people with respect and love. Watch how their world softens towards you. If you can give them Shakti by touch or thought or expression of love and awaken Shakti in them, their world softens towards you and they feel love for you. Or perhaps instead of getting mad, you make a sarcastic joke, which everybody laughs at, including you, for having told a proper funny. Angela, can I call on you to tell me about how your escape from the clutches of mundaneness is going? And what it was like 5 months ago to have totally escaped for a few days, and how you're trying to get back.
A few months ago, I experienced sitting on the bench or sitting on the ground in front of the supermarket, a total happiness, and also being all alone in a way, because I felt that there was nothing to do anymore. There was absolutely nothing to do anymore, and just to be. Nothing needed, nowhere to go. And now I'm completely throwing my life upside down, and actually to bring the outer world on the same level of my inner world. But I am working so hard that I find myself only doing. And I have a job. I have 2 jobs now. And at work, I cannot, I don't manage to stay in the being, because I get lost in all the mundaneness around me and all the things that are asked of me. So I'm struggling because I'm losing this, this state of total peace inside, and in a way I'm almost destroying myself to get somewhere. And I actually don't know how to do it differently, especially at work. I don't know how to stay in the being and make a living at the same time. So that's it. What I know to say about it now.
By the way, Angela says she is trying an experiment of just leaving her apartment on November 1st. And she posted on Facebook that anybody who wants to contact her about a place to stay or a job or something like that, to contact her. Tonita, as a spellbinder, how do you do it? Give me an example, or a hypothetical example.
Well, you give me too much credit there, Ed, but I'm not sure I can speak right now, actually.
Okay, shut up.
If it comes later, I'll raise my hand. Thank you.
Enrique, do you do spellbinding?
What do you mean by that? I don't understand the words there.
I'd have to repeat my whole lecture all over again.
Okay.
Oh, Tanita's waving her hand. Okay. You're off the hook.
Okay, so I'll just share, similar to what Angela did, is just where things are at right now. And there's an acute sense that everything that tries to form in the mind, it's almost like these little options just kind of start to arise, and it's immediately seen like, oh, that's a possible reality. And it's like, meh. And then it just goes away. And I find that that attitude or stance is kind of applying to more and more things in my life, where I'm actually really, and this is why I say you would give me too much credit, because really it's more this sense of sitting back and knowing that anything that's generated in my mind conceptually, if my world is driven by that, I know there's a pretty good chance that it's off. And I'm finding it's like dropping into the deeper self, right? And such a clear awareness that literally even just speaking in these words, right, forces consciousness to engage a reality. And more it's there's just the desire to just keep dropping, and you know, it's so subtle, it's so experiential, but
It's totally experiential.
yes, and so instead of things coming,
it's experiencing without a story.
yes, and that's why it's so hard to verbalize. But it's more of this, instead of being guided by a conceptual map that I've made in my mind and then implementing it like a good little soldier, you know, and being so acutely aware that it's coming from a consciousness of duality and fragmentation, and it can't possibly be true.
You throw the map away.
You throw the map away, and there's
You
more of a
operate
trust.
directly from your heart.
Yes, and there's a trust in all that is, in oneself as it is, and it's almost like the things that are real, that are already abiding in the heart or soul, or I don't know where they abide, but it's almost like those things now have room to just arise, and the mind does have power of veto, but more and more it's leaving space for just the natural love and divinity to flow through, and there's less actual need, desire, interest in manipulating. It's just knowing actually it's better done. I mean, that's such a cliche, but
Okay.
I'm just dropping more and more and quieter, I guess all I can say right now. So.
Vesselina, I get at least one email every day from Vesselina. And the subject of the email is, I know I'm not real and you're not real. But somebody knows this and it's real. Who is it that knows it's real? And what is real? Is love real? Is work real? Why can't I move out of this apartment? Why do I just feel like staying at home and doing nothing? What's real? Why am I? Who am I? Vesselina, speak about your struggle with words, concepts, and reality. What's real? She's at the beginning stage of becoming an awakener.
Right now, I don't feel this struggle so much, but it's always there. It's like something always poking me from inside my heart and saying that I don't know, it's not real, something is not real, but I don't know who is real. And sometimes I have some opening that is space and clarity, and also what Angela said, I'm walking on the street and I don't know if I'm going to make it like to the point to where I'm going, because I feel I will just I don't know, like a balloon, I will fly away, something like this. What other topics I should cover?
That's good enough. That's good enough.
But the pain and struggle is almost constant inside. But I forget about it. I mean, after the pain passes, I forget about it, that it ever existed. So, like before 2 or 3 hours, I may have felt like I'm dying from inside, and after that, I'm just like, oh, what a wonderful weather. My flowers have grown so much, the wind is blowing, things like this. No struggle, no pain, no effort. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Lesia, do you want to come on camera? Lesia has been pursuing me on Facebook, telling me I'm wrong about the use of the word magic. I guess she doesn't want to. Walker, what's going on with you?
I don't know where to start. I feel like my thing's taking its own journey right now. I feel kind of juxtaposed between what I'm getting out of Robert and what I get with kind of my flashbacks to earlier parts of my path, where you're discussing magic and subtle realms and intentions and these things, which I spent a lot of time on a decade ago and eventually just gave up doing any of that stuff when love became a main reality for me. But my life's pretty fucked up in a lot of ways, so it's tempting to want to reassert will and influence and those kind of things. But I mean, I succeeded in some of that kind of work recently last year, but it always ends up kind of bringing me back to where I started, with lots of ups and downs and lessons in them and never a stable outcome. So I'm honestly a little bit curious about your recent emphasis on this. You know, do you see it as something important to develop or to try to sense, or just if it happens, it happens, or a lot of teachers say?
I guess it's more my experience of my own ability to control the world and Shakti, and change moods and heal people, etc. So it's a manifestation of kind of place I am now. post-enlightenment, you might say, where you can actually use intention and the Shakti to effect change in the world or in others, to heal others. So also by focusing on Shakti, this kind of understanding comes naturally at some point when Shakti and you are no longer separate, but have constant communion in your life. And you begin to use her, just as she uses you for her purposes. As you develop a personal relationship, you can pray to her and get some controls that way, get some things that way. Or just speak with her and have her note a situation and see what she wants to do there, or he wants to do there. To me, Shakti is androgynous. It's not female or male, but the usual thing is to say that Shakti is female. So why not? It makes it a little softer than Shakti as male sounding. But I try to emphasize more that people should be their own guides, and to be around me just for the energies and to watch how I am and to get a taste or a feel of what it's like to know somebody that's awakened in many different ways, like I did around Robert, just watching him. Or around Sun San, who was a very different personality, but who taught about this too. Is the fundamental thing is that mind makes everything. And we live in the world of the mind until we've seen through the mind and keep rejecting the projections that come up, and more see the world the way it is. And when you see the world the way it is, you are immersed in the world, and from your heart you can change things. Because you are that world that you see and feel, but mostly feel. So no, it's just that this is where I am right now. Personally, I think Robert's teachings, the way he taught them, really doesn't work, because he didn't articulate a clear vision of why the world was illusory, that it was just the mind. He said it didn't exist, but it does exist. It's just that it exists without mind shaping it. So it becomes a whole different dimension, a whole different universe, so to speak, as Angela remembers from a different experience, where you exit the mundane world, the trap you're in, the shitty world of life on a Thailand island, or in Sun City, Arizona, with 115-degree temperatures and hillbilly-like attitudes all around you. You escape that world into a world of magic, a world of play, where you can play with the energies and the energies can play with you, where you feel happy almost all the time, where you feel energies all the time, and a sense of rest and of being complete. By the way, before, when I was talking about my inner state, how many felt it influenced how they were feeling at the time? By talking about how I experienced the world and myself. BJ. We're going to blast VJ with energies now.
Yes, please.
What you can do is try to feel energies in your heart, or at least in your hands. And feel the energy flow from your heart into both arms and into the hands. And holding your hands up or at your side, whatever you want to do. Push it either into VJ's heart or into his hands, leading up to his heart and coming out the hand on the other side. Either way, try it. And I'll try it for about a minute to see if VJ can feel it in the way he wants to feel it. So he'll shut up and leave us alone for a while. Okay, let's go. Now, we can all share in the energies now. Just feel open to energies coming into you. And the trick is to open your heart by totally relaxing your breathing and your heart. And from a hollow heart, push out energies through your chest wall into the world. Or else run them out your hands from your heart. But pushing it out from a hollow heart directly into through your chest wall into the world is more powerful. See how and if you experience Shakti as energies within your body, or whether you experience your body as being empty, and if energies are moving through it or not. You feel energies like electricity or similar to electricity with quivering muscles and tingling? Or you feel like rivers or waves of energy flowing through your whole body and then out your arms? How do you experience it, if at all?